I want to thank everyone for helping us today kick off Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I would especially like to thank Congressman Rodney Davis and State Representative Tim Butler for joining us today. Some of us have called child abuse and neglect a hidden epidemic in this country. Every day in the United States, and let me just give you a few statistics, every day we lose between 4 and 7 children to abuse here in Illinois. And across the country, a report of child abuse is made every 10 seconds. In Illinois, those numbers are even as sobering. On average, we lose a child to abuse and neglect every 3 days. The Illinois Department of Children and Families receives and acts upon a report of child abuse and neglect every 5 minutes. In many communities across Illinois, and frankly many communities across the United States, child abuse and neglect is rising. That may tell us that more people are willing to report abuse or neglect, more people are willing to see it and call our attention to it. But we also recognize that in tough economic times, those numbers get even worse. Across the state and across the country, families are struggling. And the Department of Children and Family Services can help. We know that with the right interventions and the right support, we and our public and private partners can help children and families at risk stay out of the system. And all of us, everyone here, every child welfare agency, every worker, every parent, every person has a role to play in preventing child abuse and neglect. I've set as my goal as Acting Director of the Department of Children and Families trying to abolish our reason to exist. That ought to be our goal. We know that over half of child deaths in this state and across the country are because of things like co-sleeping and drowning deaths, all preventable deaths, but all with some lack of attention on the part of a caregiver. So all this is why we recognize April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. It's been declared by the President as Child Abuse and Neglect Month, and it's been declared by Governor Rauner. It's a chance for us to step back and talk to our neighbors and ask ourselves, what can I do to help? So what can you do to prevent child abuse and neglect? You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to be able to see kids in need and be willing to help. And sometimes it's the little things. Purchase some school supplies for your local school. Offer to tutor a child after school. Sign up to coach a little league program. Help a family in stress. Offer to babysit or help them with the chores. Become a court-appointed special advocate. Most importantly, if you see something, say something. Be willing to call the abuse and neglect line, our hotline, if you think that you suspect a child is being abused or neglected. Not every call to the hotline results in an investigation. Not every call results in a child being removed. But the department can bring services to that family. When you recognize that 75% of kids in care are there because of neglect, I think we have to ask ourselves the question to what extent poverty is driving some of this. You know, I talked to a director in New York. He said, we had a family who asked for housing 57 times. We offered to give them therapy. So sometimes it's trying to prevent it in the first place. That's the best way to deal with child abuse and neglect. But this department can't help children if we don't know about them. So we need the public, we need you and everyone here and your friends and your family and your relatives to be the eyes and ears of the department. Over the past 4 years, our 24-hour abuse hotline has received more than 1 million calls. Up to 30% of those calls went to become actual investigations. And each year, about 60,000 families come in contact with the department. While those numbers are staggering, they don't tell the full story of the life-changing and life-saving work that people in our department and in our partner agencies do every day. So we ask you again to be our eyes and our ears. If you know a family who's struggling, let them know that help is always just a phone call away. Throughout April, the department and our partners will be participating in more Child Abuse and Prevention Month activities. So we hope you'll join us in this fight. Additionally, I would point out here in this building, starting April the 10th, there will be artwork displayed that was done by Illinois youth living in residential facilities. And you'll recognize just how talented these young people are. I mentored in Florida for several years a young man who was in care for 11 years, brought into care because his mother was a drug abuser. He and his little brother. 11 years, a year and a half here in Illinois. I just went to his swearing in as a member of the legal community in Florida. There are success stories out there, and we need to recognize that while the state is not necessarily a good parent, that collectively as a community we can make a difference in these kids' lives.